Or good afternoon, brothers and sisters. This is Sergeant D. I am going to talk to you a little bit about why strategy is important and a little bit about tactics and strategies and uh, the most important thing about leadership and what we can do in order to inspire those that we lead. Let's start off with a little bit of understanding. Within the United States military, there are three different levels at which we discuss strategy and tactics, right? You've got the tactical level, which is like boots on the ground, kicking doors, completing the mission. The operational level, which is a specific set of parameters within a specific AOR, for example. The counterterrorism operations within the CENTCOM AOR. That's the operation level. Um, and then the strategic level. The strategic level is global in scale, is geopolitical in its influence, and is ideological in its drive. And what that means is that we are furthering strategic objectives that are not necessarily set out directly by the army itself or the military, right? Strategic objectives are generally set by the State Department and Congress and are done at the global level. The thing is that strategic objectives are achieved at the tactical level or achieved by actions at the tactical level. Therefore, it's crucial that warfighters on the tactical level understand their strategic objectives. Uh, that means several things, right? Um, First, it's extremely important that we're on the same page of what the overarching goals are, right? What the strategic objectives are. So let's talk a little bit about the strategic objectives of the United States of America. We are believers in freedom and the liberation of oppressed peoples. So every operation or mission that we engage in needs to have justification that ties back to those objectives, right? So when we go out on a mission, what we should be doing is we should be talking to our soldiers about how their actions at the tactical level are influencing our propagation of the ideologies that we stand for as a nation. The best way to do that is to influence them, develop an understanding of what we are, understand our identity as a nation and what we stand for as a people. Uh, a lot of people assume that when you're going to start talking about America, you're going to start talking about politics, which to some degree is true, right? Um, but it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you land on. If you're an American person, if you are an American citizen or a soldier who fights in the United States, there are some things that we all agree on. The Constitution of the United States is what you swore an oath to uphold and protect and defend. So let's start there. When's the last time you read that? Shit, I guarantee you that there are soldiers within your ranks, if not yourself, who's never even read the damn thing and you swore an oath to it. So I would start there. Understand why we engage in missions overseas, right? So read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Um, if you just search Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you'll find it on the UN's website. Um, and that right there, the United Nations website, will be something that you could look at often for inspiration. And then once you have an understanding of your mission, how it contributes to the strategic objectives and the geopolitical missions that our country stands for, then you can inspire others. So getting everybody on the same page, right? I don't care creed, color, nationality, gender, any of that shit. Uh, you can be whatever religion you want to be. You can be whatever color you want to be. You can be whatever gender you want to be. But let me tell you one thing. If you are a citizen of the United States, if you are a soldier in the United States, if you are a warfighter that has sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, then you will agree that freedom is why we're here. It's what we fight for. Understanding what freedom means and how we advocate for it is extremely important for you to be a driven soldier. I think it's most crucial for us to not only understand what that means, but also understand how we can continue to advocate for that any place and time we are. Um, a lot of times we get stuck in the, all right, I have this task to perform, I do this, I complete my mission, I get my paycheck, the end, right? What we forget is that that mission has a purpose. And if we are bringing ourselves in line with that purpose, then we'll be acting in one accord and we will be a much more professional and successful military. A critical element that we really need to consider here, though, is is understanding what we mean by freedom, right? Um, a keystone of righteous governance is consent of the governed. So one of the critical elements that we need to understand is that we are overseas and we're engaged in missions all over the world for one purpose only: to advocate for that simple ideology that each individual should have the freedom to consent to who's governing them, to have a say in who's governing them, to participate in a democratic society. That's what we perpetuate. That's the ideological drive that we have. And I think we can all agree that having a say in who governs over you is important, regardless of the issues we have within our country, because we do. We're not a perfect society. Nobody's perfect, right? But we can all agree that those core ideologies are true, right? We all want to have a say in who's governing us, and we fight for that. And I've had the pleasure of serving in places that just barely got the right to vote, just barely got a democracy stood up in their society, and they're very passionate about it. We've lost sight of that, and I think we need to get back to it. And I think it's something that we, the soldiers and the warfighters for the United States military, could do better at talking to each other about, because it's okay to talk about that. Maybe not political parties or whatever, for whatever reason your command team will say, don't talk about those things. Well, honestly, my opinion is that there are certainly political things that we have to talk about, because at the end of the day, we are a political organization. We are the executive branch of the United States of America. We are the executors of the law. The Congress puts together laws that include which missions we engage in you know United Nations Security Council missions, NATO missions, etc. We are the executors of that. Um, Particularly as enlisted, we're the executors. You've got officers who are officiants of the law, who are there to officiate in the things that have been deliberated upon by Congress, and then enlisted folk are the ones who actually execute that. So as executors of the law, we damn well better understand what morals motivate those laws. We better understand what principles we all agree on and what we can all discuss with one another to inspire one another to be more in line and in tune with what we're fighting for. So, yes, strategic objectives achieved at the tactical level. Understanding the strategic objectives first requires us all agree on what is important. And the biggest foundational ones that we can all agree on is consent of the governed, um, democratic societies, giving a system where people have a vote, have a say. Those are things we can all agree on. And we'll go ahead and say we need to understand how we are actually advocating for that, right? So it's important that we understand our individual mission and how it contributes to the overarching goals, right? So the individual missions that we have sometimes can be as simple as sitting on a fob in or a foss or a talk somewhere where we're outside of the United States, and we're just there, force posture, right? Increased force posture for the European Defense Initiative right now is a big thing, right? So we're going to talk about how just being there actually furthers the objectives of our nation and how it helps us strategically. So it's easy to get stuck in a rut and think, okay, I'm just here, I'm away from my family, and you go out and you make poor decisions, right? In order to mitigate that, to stop that, the best thing we can do is inspire our soldiers to, instead of considering, I'm stuck away from my family and all this, think about why they're there. You are there because you're helping build the trust between our country and the other parts of Europe. And as we can develop and strengthen that trust, we have more influence and capacity to advocate for the ideologies of democracy and consent of the governed. That is what our nation was founded on and is what we have sworn an oath to defend and advocate for. So, understanding how your mission fits into the goals, critical. So first, we have everyone on the same page for what the actual ideologies are, which we can all find what we agree on easily enough. Second, uh, being aware of how your individual mission contributes to the overarching objectives or the strategic objectives or goals that we have. And then third, understanding the stakes for any of the outcomes. So, what does it mean if the mission is successful? What does it mean if the mission is not successful? Uh, Often in the military, they call that FUOPS, future operations. In religion, we used to call it keeping an eternal perspective. Um, but I'll use a good combination of both, and I'll call it maintaining a strategic perspective at the tactical level. Because at the end of the day, actions at the tactical level are what cause success at the strategic level. So we need to have people at the tactical level understanding the strategic objectives and how they are contributing to them. I'll give you a couple example. I'll give you a quick example. So understanding the stakes, future operations, and strategic perspective. It's incredibly important that you understand if you're successful in your mission, what it means to furthering those strategic objectives, and what it means if you fail, so that you have a little more skin in the game, and also so that you can do your best to advocate for uh, being as successful as possible within your sphere of influence. So an example is, say my mission is to go to the store and get some eggs. And I get to the store, they don't have eggs. Mission failure. Okay, what does that mean? Future operations or in a strategic perspective. Okay, that means that further operations like, whatever I was cooking that required eggs is going to be delayed by 2 hours while I go to a different store in order to get what I need to complete the mission. Okay, but is the mission still on? Yes. Can we still, so you can at the tactical level start preparing yourself and understanding what's going to be coming. Okay, I'm going to have to be up a little bit later because I'm going to have to cook a little bit later. You can plan that when you understand the strategic objectives. If you don't understand the strategic objectives, then you're just sitting there waiting, saying bohica, bend over, here it comes again, waiting for orders down the pipe to say, hey, yeah, this is what you got to do. And you're like, oh man, I just did this other mission and it didn't work out. I got to do it again. It's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, you still have to bake the cake. And so when you're in that situation, if you know ahead of time that that's the overarching objective, then you already know that's coming and you can prepare yourself for it. And shit, sometimes you'll go and engage in the mission before you even get orders. And would you look at that? You fucking did something good. So, and that's what it's all about. I think that the most critical thing for success in any mission is maintaining that strategic perspective. Um, it's critical for us to ensure that every piece is moving in the correct direction to help further the strategic objectives. And in order to do that, we need to have the strategic perspective and operational constitution to understand what we're there for and how we can further the cause. Um, and ultimately, that's what it's all about: is trying to become soldiers of a cause instead of simply mercenaries, guys that are, here for 3 hots and a cot and yeah, I'll do what they tell me to do so that my family's taken care of. That's okay if that's all you can do. That's fine, whatever. You'll still do the right thing, I assume, when you're told to. Um, but that doesn't. You're not a very strong soldier if you're just a soldier who's fighting for money versus somebody who's actually fighting for a just cause and the right thing. Um, a good example that has been a problem for a while for me. We have failed as an organization. The United States military has not been successful in inspiring its soldiers and service members to. It hasn't been very good at inspiring us to understand why we fight. Um, I think that the failure of the United States military to inspire service members to understand how their actions in each operation are helping to further and expand the uh, objectives of the United States, and furthering and expanding democratic liberties and freedom throughout the world. Like, once we can understand how we are doing that and get back to that firm belief in fighting for that, we'll be a much more successful fighting force, more professional and stronger in our constitution, our will to fight. Um, I once brought this up to a general, General Doyle, when I was deployed to Poland. I'd mentioned how it was really important that we had some discussion about why we're here. And like within a week, he had brought everyone into a briefing and went through, and he had the battle maps, and he showed us all what our objectives were and why we were there. And I thought that was awesome. The only problem is that it was giving us operational perspective at the tactical level, which is great. But I think further we need the actual strategic perspective at the tactical level. So an addendum to a presentation like that, where you bring your soldiers in, and you say, all right, here's the situation, especially as we're transitioning to large scale combat operations, and we're going to be having so many massive shifts on where the forward line of troops is on our battle maps. We're going to need to have soldiers that can execute um, the strategic goals with the absence of any orders, because chain of command could easily get cut off in a peer level conflict. And we're going to need to have that understanding of the strategic perspective all the way down at the tactical level, so that if we do get cut off, we can still pursue the operational objectives, right? So he did an amazing thing by doing that. One of the favorite I've worked with over the course of the past 4 years. I have worked, like, directly shaken hands with and worked with two-star generals. Let's see, five different two-star generals, and by far, my favorite so far is General Doyle. He's very much for the people. First time I met him, he wasn't in uniform, and I was just talking to him like a guy. Had no idea what his rank was. And then he came back down into my mailroom like a week later in a uniform. And I was like, oh, well, shit. I was talking to the freaking two-star general. One of those weird moments. And that tells me that he's humble and open, and just a great inspiration. 10 out of 10, favorite one I've worked with so far. I mean, I'm still young. But I think we have, he did, it was a huge step in the right direction. He did the right thing by putting that together for us. Amazing. It felt a little bit short because we didn't get to the strategic perspective, like how our mission in the European Deterrence Initiative, being there in the Eastern and European and Eastern European regions, helps aid, from a geopolitical scale. It helps bolster their economy, because you have a bunch of like soldiers that are getting paid and then going out on the town and buying stuff out in their economy, and it just injects a bunch of money into their economy. So that's a huge thing for them. And then additionally, you've got a whole bunch of soldiers there that, um, if they had understood, if they were inspired and, um, truly cognizant of what we fight for as a people, those are more people to propagate and expand and spread the ideologies that we fight for on a global scale. Um, so for those in who are cadets watching this video, I'm going to give you some quick pointers on how to remember things. I don't know if you guys still do this same quizzes that you used to do, but on a tactical level, boots on the ground, kicking doors. Operational level, specific parameters and specific AOR or specific region. Strategic, global in scale, geopolitical in influence, and ideological in drive. So if you can remember those things, you'll be successful on your tests. Um, I think it's extremely. I don't know if I've. I don't know if I can say this enough. Um, it is critical that all service members understand how, at a tactical level, um, you're furthering the operational objectives, and how those operational objectives feed directly into the advocacy and propagation of our ideologies as a people. And it's extremely important that we know um, how those tie back to not just our objectives as a nation, but how they tie into our core ideologies, and how it translates to our national identity. People talk about, ooh, America, freedom. But what does that actually mean? So when we can actually say, you swore an oath to the Constitution, read the Constitution, understand the Constitution. You're in service of a United Nations Security Council mission, a UNSC mission, okay? And the mission kicked off because of human rights violations. Okay, what does that mean? Read the Declaration of Human Rights. You read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and you realize, wow, we are, uh, you know, we're fighting for a just cause. We're doing the right thing. And when you have that in your heart, you fight with so much more fervor. You are a much better soldier. And it doesn't really just translate to why you're fighting in reference to a battle map. It's how your mission impacts the expansion of liberty and justice for all, and why each specific battle is for your individual beliefs, because that's how you become a soldier with a cause. That's how you can truly be somebody that's making a difference in the world. Um, I mean, I will leave off with one extremely important thing. I would implore any member of the United States military, at no matter what level, to read the Constitution of the United States and remember why you fight. If you're engaging in a mission overseas, read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, easy to find on the UN's website. Understand how your service in that area contributes to that. And when you're doing those things, you're a hell of a lot less likely to be doing untoward activities and degrading the trust with those that we're going into their country to strengthen our ties with. When you can pursue your soldiers and your warfighters, when you can inspire them in such a way that they have the internal drive and the will to pursue the mission in the absence of any guidance, that's when you know you're successful as a leader. When you can look at these core ideologies, when you can understand them at such a level that you know in your heart what they mean for you, for our nation and for these people that are just now getting the opportunity to consent in their governance, just now having the ability to vote, or are we're trying to develop a democracy in that area so that we can give them the ability to vote. When we are truly able to take that into our hearts, develop a true desire and a passion for advocating for that, and when we can influence those within our sphere of influence to the point where they will continue to advocate for that mission when nobody else is around, that's when we know we're successful as a leader. And the best way to do that is to understand the ideologies that we fight for, understand why you're here. And if your answer to that question is that you're just here for, three hots and a cot and to provide for your family, I would ask you to read the Constitution of the United States and ask yourself if you're really just here to provide for your family, or if you really do believe in what it says. Read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and ask yourself, if you saw somebody violating those rights, would you stand up and fight? And if the answer is yes, that you would liberate oppressed peoples, then the answer right there is that you are a believer in what the United States of America stands for. God bless America, and God bless every one of my brothers and sisters in and outside of the uniform.